am delighted to welcome Iris Clermont to the show. Iris is an internationally accredited professional coach and a graduated mathematician. And as a business coach for project managers and teams, she's travelled the world delivering successful in-business programs for more than 25 years, offering a clear focus on business objectives, combined with developing leadership and project management skills within the day-to-day business itself. Participants would need courage to develop skills and ways of working, the courage to discover new ways of communicating, so that finally they can celebrate the success and share their insights and get benefits with the program team. She's a #1 best-selling author with the book Team Magic, and her latest book, Team Rhythm, is storming up the charts. Iris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Nigel.
Yeah, call me what you want. I answer to most things. Tell us a little bit more about your impressive sort of experience that you've got there. Tell us a little bit where you are and so forth. Family, friends, hobbies, anything.
Yeah, wow, yeah. And thank you for the nice and beautiful introduction. Reminded me of my life story, basically, and thinking about 25 years backwards from now. And I love mathematics, therefore I studied maths, and I love music as well. I play double bass and flute and singing, and therefore I combine both of that in my business world. So I started as a software developer in first GSM design for those mobile phones in 1991, and then my journey went to consultancy, business consultancy, and I traveled worldwide. And then I went into project management. I was basically the first female project manager at Nokia in Europe. At that time, it was purely men out there. Now it luckily changed. Yeah. And then I discovered the world of coaching, team coaching, and basically from consultancy I recognized, okay, telling people what great ideas I have doesn't attract them to really realize my ideas. It's better to ask other people how they see it. The experts who are in the fields, they have the best ideas, and asking them traveled me towards coaching. And I was traveling a lot while I was raising 3 boys, and which was another project as well. So keeping them healthy, having daily mothers around, and during that time I was writing Team Magic, and now I have more space because my 3 kids are adults now, and coming in, joining into the jobs now, and the first team exercises that I explored, I tried it out with the 3 boys, and when they started fighting with each other, I thought, okay, that is not a good idea, and that is not a good exercise.
So they were your crash test dummies.
Yeah. In the early beginning. Okay. And listening exercise is very good as well. Conflict solving, which is one of the key topics, is as well good with kids. I mean, listening and repeating what they really want is much more easy than jumping in and sorting out what's ongoing.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's interesting actually, because the latest episode that's just come out is a conversation we've had with Anara. I'm going to break her name again. Asibakova, the Little PM book, which her and her husband and her 2 children co-created as a teaching kids how to use project management skills. And obviously these skills, these interacting and team management and working in team skills, a lot of the school education does bring some of that sort of team sports, but not everyone is into sports, and those the teaming skills are so important when you get into the workforce, because there's very few people who are in a situation where it's just you and no one else talks to you. You've got to work that interaction. You've got to be able to hone those skills. And obviously, I imagine 3 boys. I imagine they're fairly close in ages, so they're always trying to get one upon each other. Yeah. Those. But you see that in the workforce as well, where you get people who are trying to outdo it with each thing and kind of build that. Maybe that's, I suppose, with kids, it's that lack of confidence of where they are in the pecking order and setting themselves up there. And you get people in organisations who feel like that sometimes. Is it?
Yeah, and 3 boys is a kind of small team as well. Families are a team as well.
Yeah.
And my focus is team magic, team rhythm, looking at teams. And some people say, I don't have a team, but you're part of a family. So yeah, those exercises are working in a family as well.
Yeah, they are. And the dynamics are there and they're changing and different priorities that each of those team members have, different likes, different dislikes. And it doesn't, it's funny, sometimes I feel a bit guilty about using the family analogies, but actually it's not dumbing down those interactions. They're just human interactions, and they're just a different, again, it's a different person has a different priority at a different time. Sometimes a screaming 4-year-old has a very specific priority, yeah, and an unhappy 40-year-old has a very specific priority. The fact that the age is irrelevant. It's just about dealing with those priorities, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, I write the team rhythm for middle managers who are overwhelmed. And yeah, looking into adulthood, you are overwhelmed as well. And in middle management, you have upper management and your team, and sometimes it's too much. And then one exercise is about start with an empty paper to sort out your priorities. What is it really? What do I want? And
It's
to
quite
see all the plot of different, I'm doing this and this and this, and I'm having this role, and having them on one piece of paper, it's already blowing you away. Oh wow, how amazing! That is so much. Yeah, where is my backlog? What I'm really committed to do.
Yeah, I can see that. It's something I've been in that situation, sitting in my role and most project managers sit in those roles. We're in that as you say, that middle manager where you have the demands of that senior management wanting something delivered, or your customer or your client, whatever, and then you've got a team who kind of sit and I love reading the Dilbert columns where you get a lot of those where it's kind of we've got this problem, the project's late, what we're going to do, we're going to add another project manager, and it's the engineers are kind of going, we could do, if we can get rid of all these project managers, we might just get some work done. And you kind of have, they are caricatures of the extremities in those things, but there's a grain of truth in them all the way along, isn't it? It's sometimes and that, I think there's a great picture where you've got a picture of a guy digging a hole, and then you've got about 10 people, one sat around him, and it's kind of like you've got all the different names. Oh yeah, we're going to have to let John go because we're going to have to cut back, and you've got all these hangers on and it's kind of that's where you sit. And I remember listening to a podcast. One of the first podcasts I got into, actually, was two or three. So actually, I took 4 podcasts I started listening to that were about management and stuff. And one was called The Cranky Middle Manager, by I've forgotten his name. I'll remember it in a bit. Anyway, he was great. He wrote a book about remote working now. He doesn't do the podcast anymore, but it was that person sat in the middle of all of these things and kind of feeling like there's a few things that you get frustrated with both ends, and that overwhelming. You want to give your attention to your team, you want to give that servant leadership to your team, but you also want to be able to make sure that you manage your manager above you. And that, when you say about being overwhelmed and team rhythm, I think that is a key thing, because you can get those, and I've heard it described as team rituals and things like that, and some of the agile community bring in a lot of those team rituals which kind of help, and I think there are a lot of them, a lot of it's bleeding into each other with just general management thing, with the habits, just the names we're going to hook to them, but it's you can kind of have that 15-minute scrum, and it's actually a morning staff meeting is what it would have been called years ago, and it's kind of what we're doing today, what's important, that kind of conversation. And I suppose you've got two books there, Team Magic and Team Rhythm, and you do coaching these teams and get there. What are the sort of war stories? Are always great fun, and I like to hear them. But what was it that was there something that triggered you wanting to go, right, I want to look at that, I want to help teams, I want to coach them? Or did someone say to you, that's a good way, we think you'd be good at that? What was it that made you do that switch from where you were?
Yes, it was a management coaching seminar. Once I was a project leader it was in Malaysia, and two coaches at that time they were reflecting me back. It's not people don't appreciate being on time, and I put a lot of energy to be in time with my team as a project leader,
Yeah.
and it took me really energy. But instead, what my environment, what my team and manager really appreciated me for was giving them feed forward. And I thought, oh, that's easy peasy. That I just go around, that's my natural attitude, give feed forward to people, say, this is what I appreciate you for. This, if you would change that slightly, it would improve so enormously our outcomes. And they really appreciate me for that. And that is basically coaching or team coaching, basically.
That's a great phrase that I've never heard before. Feed forward. As in, is that positive feedback, or just from a point of framing it to say it's information to be able to do something different?
Yeah, it changed the position. Marshall Goldsmith, he has a kind of nice videos about using feed forward instead of feedback. And I really love that. Marshall Goldsmith is also a mathematician, and it's about the whole attitude is different. If you speak about feedback, you already saying, that's something bad. We're looking bad at my history. Somebody will tell me what negative I was adding here, and I don't like to be confronted with that words. But if you just look into feed forward, looking into the future, because we only can change the future,
Yeah.
then it's about, I highly appreciate what was done so far. And if you look into the future, if that would slightly change, then what new impact it could have. And that is a fun story. That is optimizing, that is improving.
That's brilliant. I love that. I love the framing of it, because I've heard I've seen things where the velvet hammer and the poo sandwich, the shit sandwich, where people have given feedback, in a manner where they pretend your hair looks nice today, you were rubbish at that. Oh, look at your shoes, and it's pointless. Yeah, it get kind of, still that gets taught in some management stuff, and it is, and I'm a firm believer from talking to listening to the other manager tools I've talked about many times before. Their idea of feedback is always, this is what happened, this is the consequences, can you do it different, here's my suggestion. And it's focusing on the going forward, it's focusing on the consequences of what happened and what to do differently to resolve it. And again, also a positive from a point of view of, it's not just about someone does something wrong, it's also when they do something right to say, oh, what you did there was brilliant, when you do it like that, this happens, great, keep on doing it. And that's, again, you're feeding the future view of what you think they should do to help improve them. And I think that
still it's your decision if you want to do that. I mean, I run programs like they send kind of to 6 to 8 people just those 2 questions. What do you appreciate? How do you see the value I bring in to our company? And the second question is, how could I add even more from your perspective? And how? So it's related, really, there's an inspiration in it, in the response. And you're asking your colleagues, whomever you want to ask. And then you get this kind of lots of responses. And if it's all 6 the same, then it's worth to think about. Yeah, okay, they're all seeing something inside me what I can improve, and it's related to even more value I can add to the company or to my environment. Or
Yeah, no, that's, and I can understand from the intro where it's saying about in your programs, it challenges people. I imagine in those scenarios where you've got to create an environment of trust and an environment where people are willing to be open, which is hard to do. If I have a problem with someone else and something that they do, feeding back to them is a difficult thing to do, feeding forward to them. But just saying that when you do this is a problem, it's very hard to do. And I can see how that challenges when you're in that environment. If you've got a small group of people, right? How best can that person? What could they? So because it's kind of not. It's not saying negative about it, but it is pulling out the thing that you see as the best of them. And I know when I've had some 360 feedback before now, some of the things that people say about me and think about me, I don't think about myself. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't fit in my head that that's a priority of what I do. Because sometimes you just do it naturally, don't you?
and that is lovely. And with those responses, I'm really personally touched because I see such a beauty and wisdom in the colleagues uh, reflecting about this person. And
Yeah,
they are astonished as well. They say, oh, wow, what they see in me. Wow, I'm impressed. They like, of course, the appreciations. And then they come to, what I can improve. Yeah, wow.
yeah, yeah, and that's it. It's brilliant, isn't it? Because it's that thing of you do that brilliantly. Actually, if you did this, you could be even more brilliant. And that kind of onward building, I can see how that would be really beneficial. So, why? How did it lead to writing the book, the first book, Team Magic? What was it? What was the catalyst for that?
The catalyst for the first book. I love books, and yeah, my grandma, she was an English teacher, so I loved English, and it was the year I started to become a coach, and I thought, yeah, okay, now it's time to write it to the book, and it was a kind of adventure journey, writing it in 30 days. There was a program about writing, oh, it was 90 days writing, 90 days publishing.
Yeah,
And I'm this structured person who loves programs, writing each day 1,000 words. And I love this creative part. And still I loved
yeah.
it again with the second book. Because it's coaching is beautiful, but then coming back to reflecting about, yeah, what focusing on what are really the tools, what really helps, just reflecting it, bringing it to one book
So was
is
that
a
was
nice.
was that so to Team Magic, was that a summary of the coaching tools and techniques that you were using as part of your day-to-day business?
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
at that time, yeah.
cool.
And
And
now it was time after 11 years to, because the journey, I invented so much more, so many more tools and exercises. And then I wanted to bring music in with the rhythm part
yeah,
to bring something fun and light into the world of project management.
yeah. I think there is that. I think there is a. I can understand that because there are some elements of the. I think I mentioned to you before. I was doing a training program today for some new people working into this sort of space, and it was around our financial review process. And whilst for me it's kind of important, bread and butter, you know what you got to do. When I'm actually presenting it, I think it's pretty dry stuff. It's quite boring. Even if it is about making money, which I kind of used to get a bit more excited about, and not everyone does. I recognise that. But it's kind of one of those things you're thinking, yeah, it's actually quite a difficult subject to get people enthused about, and especially when you're doing it as a remote presentation and you can't see people's faces and and they're all on mute. I was glad I bumped into someone who had been on it later in the office, and they said they found it useful. So at least I've helped one person at least. But it was I lost my train of thought there. It was about that you were saying about how it can be a bit dry, and bringing in that alternative view of things and bringing in the analogies and things. It's great. So,
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about.
Choirs, from choirs or from jazz bands, from playing. I mean, if you see a jazz band, I mean, everybody plays an instrument. We have those trumpets who want to be soloist and first and be seen, and we have us as bass. You play bass, and I play double bass, and we prefer to be in the background, giving the rhythm, giving the stability to the band or wherever we play.
I tend to want to play lead bass. That's the problem.
Okay.
I'm always there trying to mess. Everyone's looking at me, trying to stop me messing around most of the time when I'm at practice. So that's the problem. Bit of an attention seeker. Anybody think? Podcasts and
give those guys. It gives those guys the attention they need, and that is in business the same. I mean, you have those guys who want to be seen, who want to be in the spotlight, and who need really applause from management or from the team. And there are others who it's enough for them to serve, to be recognized that they bring value in. They are more the silent guys, and everybody is different. Like in a jazz band, plays different instruments.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So how? Tell us a little bit about the book then, the magic, the team rhythm. Sorry. So what have you? How is it structured? What's the thing? Obviously, don't give away the whole thing. No one will buy the book off you. They'll just listen to this, but it just give us a taste of the maybe 2 or 3 of the items in there that people would maybe be able to take today and use. And then come along and grab some.
It's structured like a xylophone. So kind of the first 3 notes or tones are getting in sync, getting synchronized, then raising efficiency, which is a more project manager loving part, getting better, improving, and learning from other areas. And listening is the first part. It's trust in there as well. But or resolving conflicts. If you look at the listening part, which is one of my favorites, in each of the tone there is a cartoon, which says, okay, this is how it looks like in chaos or how we don't want it, and a cartoon who shows, like for example in trust, you see someone in prison, someone locked down if you don't trust. But how does a cartoon look like if there is trust in the room? Then ideas can explore, and it's really fun to be part of that team. And if you look into rhythm, for example, there's a cartoon about listening and ears, and a rhythm exercise. So to explore, like one is starting with a rhythm, and the other one is repeating that rhythm. I mean, we are both playing the bass, so it would be easy to follow rhythm. And here, but with a team, you see, okay, how difficult it is to listen to a rhythm and to repeat it. Because once you repeat the rhythm, you got it, and then you repeat it and you repeat it, and then there's a danger of running into an automatism.
Yeah.
Like it happens with music as well. Yeah, and then we think about something different, and then we are suddenly out of tune.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. It's that thing of being conscious of what you're doing, but not being too, what's the word? Too obsessive with being that you've got to be open, haven't you, to changes? Because obviously with our business and with the changes and with businesses, things change, and the rhythm of what needs to be done changes. And the rhythm of each team, you will get a new team member, which immediately they may introduce, and get it with the orchestra kind of thing, they may introduce a different instrument into the orchestra that causes, or a different style into the orchestra or into the music that they have, that means that things will go and feel a little bit different, I suppose, isn't it? And it's the same with teams, that you get those interactions and different music flavours, depending on the style of the individual as well as the instrument.
So with this listening exercise, teams can really explore how their listening skills really are, because most of us think, yes, I'm a great listener, especially the project leaders. And then with the rhythm exercise, you think, okay, yeah, can I really repeat a kind of longer rhythm? No, usually not.
Yeah.
And then you realize it. And with words, it's the same. We had a lovely exercise, and I describe it in the book as well, within a jazz formation. The kind of coach was asking, okay, we were playing and we were not really playing together. It was not really creating a sound. And then the coach was saying, okay, I'm going to stop you. And whenever I stop you, I will ask you who was playing what kind of sound and what kind of rhythm. Was it the drummer or the pianist or the saxophonist? So we really raised our attention because we were aware the coach can stop any moment, and then we will be asked, what was the piano playing right now? What was the saxophonist playing right now? What was the flute playing? And just with the raised attention, there was so much music in this room.
Yeah.
It was really fantastic. And the same as within meetings. If you say, okay, let's start in the beginning. We stop each moment, and I'm going to ask you what was happening, what was the other one saying. And with this raised awareness, we are so much more attentive.
Yeah, I can see that, because it's so easy in a meeting. I do it myself, I'm terrible at times, where you will try, and even more so now in the remote environments that we work in, where we've got email sat on one screen, this on there, and the conversation here. And you can just it's easier to drift. I can see that situation where you've got only part of the story that you're hearing, especially if you're a PM and you're running a team there, and you've got a stand-up, or you've got a team meeting where you're talking about a problem that you're trying to solve. That whole thing of that active listening, that not thinking about what you're going to say next, that we all do and we can all be better at. And I just think that how I introduce that concept of, if I stop now and ask you what we were talking about, would you be able to repeat it, the last minute of words? Would you be able to, or even if you can't repeat the content, the words word for word, but would you be able to paraphrase it? Hand on heart, I think most people would say no. There's very few people who would be able to do that in a meeting, which makes, it's worrying, isn't it? Because how much of it are they assimilating, and how much of they, when they do come back with a conversation, do they bring it in? Now, sometimes it's important that happens, sometimes it isn't as important, but I can understand that thinking of it in that manner, that you have that group in that room, and whilst you're taking turns in the conversation, if you're not listening, that rhythm's not there, is it?
Yeah, and how important is it to paraphrase, to summarize in between? That cannot be done enough. Yeah. And even if you don't like it as a moderator or as a project manager, you can ask around in the team, hey, I didn't get it really. Can somebody summarize it here now? Or what is your facet? Or can you describe it in one sentence? And everybody's happy that someone is summarizing it. And from there you can kind of take a deep breath, and from there you can raise again and asking, okay, what are the next actions now? What are your ideas? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a colleague who does that really, really well, actually. And I was just thinking, the way that he does it is, if someone will say, we're trying to get to understanding customer requirement or business requirement, and they will say, so what I'm hearing is, you need this, and why do you need this? You need it because of the, and he'll follow that conversation, and he will replay. What I'm hearing is, you need this. Because you need this, then we need to do this in order for you to get that, and why you need that is, and kind of joins that whole sentence in that re-summarization of it, and does it really well. Confuses me sometimes because it gets down into some technical stuff, and but does it in a way that the other person can sit there and go, yes, that's what I said, you've got it right, and that you understand it, and that reframing of it, wording it, sometimes word it in terms that they understand rather than technical terms. I've done it before. I don't do it anywhere near as well as he does it, and I just think that whole, again, it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's the repeating of those phrases, repeating of that rhythm, and being able to kind of, I know it sounds silly, and we've got the musical analogy. I'm thinking of the film Deliverance with the dueling banjos, where you've got the banjo plays one thing, guitar plays another. It's not actually the same. It's a slightly different, isn't it? It's a might be the same notes, but it's on a different instrument. It sounds slightly different, and it is a different way of doing it. You're doing it in a different point on the instrument, and then you're going back in two. But you're kind of mirroring each other's on that. But it's also playing back your own, and then they build a little bit extra onto it, and there's another bit added, and it kind of builds on that, and it just maybe that's a bit of a twee mix up, but it kind of feels like that's what we do in meetings, don't we? We kind of have that conversation. If we've listened properly, we paraphrase it, say it, and then someone will come back, well, actually, that's not what I meant. I missed a bit off there. So actually, this is what I meant. So they add that little bit extra on, and then, oh, right, so when you said that, I hear this. And it is really useful. It can get too much because you can be going back to it. But that listening, that clarification as part of listening is part of listening, isn't it?
And it's you spoke in the beginning about rituals,
Yeah.
right? And like in Agile, it's ceremonies,
Yeah.
and it's a bit like that. This paraphrasing, summarizing in between. That is giving us a frame, like in music as well. Like
Yeah.
this is the frame, and here we are in those frames, and this gives us the safety as well.
Yeah. Because you know what? We all like structure, I think, even the most unstructured of us. There's a level, I can be fairly flaky, is the best way to describe me, but I also like I've got real good structure, and like, I've got my calendar, I know what I'm doing then, I know what I'm doing then, I know what I'm doing then. I do like that. I don't always do it, but I do like it. And I think, again, you've got those frames that you can box yourself into, but with that flexibility to go around it. But if you don't have that structure to know that you're going outside of it, it makes it a bit harder. I suppose it's that whole thing of where they're teaching people playing jazz, which you got to learn. You've got to learn the rules before you can break them, kind of thing. And you've got to
Yeah,
have
and
that.
then breaking would mean kind of blue note as well. I mean, it's kind of, and that is blue note is standing for me for conflict, and allowing that and playing it really like there's a sound with a blue note or the septima chords, and then something new is coming out of that. And in business, it's similar. I mean, people crash, but if all of us accept, this is good because there is potential in each conflict. When there's a conflict, it's hooray, yeah, there is something we can improve.
Yeah. How do you in when you're coaching, when you've got, and I've seen this with teams where I've gone into teams and they're working with other parties, other third parties, or with suppliers, or with other departments, and I've seen it where there's kind of been a pitched battle between the two groups. How do you? I know how I dealt with it, and I'm just interested to see how you advise people when they're in, because I'm sure you've gone into organisations where you have got departments or supply people where they're just at each other's throat. What do you do to help those organisations?
Yeah, I work closely with a cartoonist, and I mean, there's lots of cartoons in here, and I just show them kind of, like I have one about walls and fightings. Here's kind of one with distrust,
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
And
For our listeners, there's like a wall, and then there's like looks like a cage, and some people trying inside one side or the other.
And
Jump
then,
on YouTube to get a look at about 33 minutes.
yeah, and then the other one was saying, how could a team look like with trust? Just as an example, or with walls in between, and you are hiding behind walls, or you're shooting at each other, rather than having ideas and sharing. So both pictures are reflect, and then they see, this is really how we act. But it's in a cartoon, so you have a distance to that, but you can reflect to that. And once you see that, then they explore by themselves. This is how we want to work. Yeah, we want to share ideas. We want to appreciate each other because that is more fun. And how do we come there? This is one option with cartoons. The other one is, I love the conversational IQ dashboard from Judith Glaser, because she's having kind of a red zone and a green zone. And I ask teams, okay, where are we? And then they say, okay, are we in this kind of modus, I am right and the other one is wrong? Because usually that is what if there are different areas, each team thinks, we are brilliant. If just the other one would change, life would be so much easier. If all are that intelligent, if all are the same like me, life would be beautiful. And then I reflect that and I ask, is that really true? And most people say, if all would be like me, maybe that wouldn't be such a brilliant world indeed.
Yeah, I find that we just lost you for a little bit there, but I think I caught the gist of it. I find that we've got I don't know if you will have heard of the disc model, and I've like that disc model, and the fact that whole point of that disc model is, as I describe it, it makes you understand why that other person at the other end is a bit of a dickhead and why they think you're a bit of a dickhead, and it's kind of like that. People think I'm stupid because they think completely different to me. They don't understand how I work. And I think the same. And then, as you say, you look back at yourself and you go, well, think about me, and I think about the other people who I work with, and I think nothing would get finished if everyone was like me. It wouldn't quite get finished. A lot of things would get started, not everything would get finished. And I think that's the thing, is kind of that blend of people, that blend of character, that blend of skill is so important with those teams. But by having that blend, you're going to get conflict, aren't you? You're going to get misunderstanding, and I've seen teams where they were in that situation where I'm right, you're wrong, and the other side where I'm right, you're wrong, and what they hadn't done is try to understand why they thought I was wrong. They just thought they were being stupid, bloody minded, awkward, and we got them together, broke them out into teams, separate teams, so there was co-teams solving the problem, ones from each of the sub-teams, and then they had to solve a problem together, and then they worked together, and then they had to understand why something wouldn't work, and they actually listened to each other, and then they think, oh, so when we do that causes you that problem. Oh, I never knew that. And then when they said, well, and when the opposite way around, but when you do that causes us this problem. Oh, I never knew that. And that dialogue, it didn't. To be fair, there were some individual characters there, but they didn't. It did change the relationship because they opened up to each other about what doing it one way affected them, and we had to take them out there and abstract it to something separate. It wasn't just a meeting; it was a broken up, curated workshop with lots of unusual stuff. We used different themes to break it out and do different things, so that it actually kind of create it. And it sounds like you're saying with the cartoons, where you're creating a less confrontational space. And I've seen sort of things with using Lego Serious Play to do similar sort of things, because then it's not about individuals, it's about explaining a process, it's about explaining a situation, and it can be less confrontational, because once those brick walls go up, it's hard to bring them back down again, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's usually about clarity and transparency, understanding listening skills, and
Yeah,
and occasionally, or what I see, it's about decisions. Uh, if if it's about people fighting about the best decision because this I'm right.
yeah,
Why don't we just go this direction? And one other way to sort out, yeah, putting kind of option A, B, C, asking is there any other? Can we mix those options? And then pros and cons, and then asking them, we do not need to decide now, but if we would decide now, what would be your voting? And if that is already consensus, then we are already there. If there's
yeah,
dissent, then it's sometimes balanced. Then it's on the one hand nearly the same as on the other hand, and then we can just I call it würfeln in German. Then we can. It doesn't matter so much. I mean,
yeah.
if it's balanced.
Yeah, I think it's not. Again, it's introducing that non-confrontational way of having a difficult conversation, isn't it? Where you sit there and go, right, we're not making a decision at the moment, but what's your best recommendation? What do you reckon? What do you reckon? What do you reckon? Brilliant. Okay, fine. That's where. Right. So, you don't think that's why? Out of curiosity, why don't you think it's a good idea? And rather than them going, where you know what I mean, when everyone's deciding something else, it's kind of well, let's make sure we make the right decision. What's your reason? Oh, because of this, this, and this, and have a discussion. And it reminds me of the Scrum poker, agile poker, where you're. In fact, I've got my poker cards there, where you get the one where everyone puts down, right, how big do you think it is? And everyone puts down 1, and someone in the corner is putting down 100. And they're like, why have you got 100? We all think it's easy. And it's like, well, what about X, Y, Z? What about this interface? What about John, who's never here? What about this? And you kind of go, oh, I never thought of that. Or the others come up with, well, that's not a problem because it's not that piece. But the thing would have been, if you didn't do that and didn't have that conversation, you could move forward into something with 2 people or a group of people and 1 person thinking completely different about something. And opening up those conversations is so important to make sure that you're all going for the same direction with the right assumptions. And it's really hard sometimes to get those out of people, I think.
Yeah, and the way and what all these ways had in common is stepping away, like looking at the picture from the distance,
Yeah,
and going into an emotionally peaceful last vacation thinking status,
yeah,
and looking at the decision or whatever, the fight, the conflict, from away from you. I mean, or thinking you are in the mountains or looking at the sea, and those topic is so far away. It's just minus points in the far in the distance, and from that distance looking, okay, how does this issue look like now for you?
yeah. That taking that step back, taking that breath, and kind of putting on a different lens makes a hell of a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then again, looking closer to it, I mean, taking this kind of loop and looking really close to this topic. How does it look from really near and big and huge?
Yeah,
And just exploring in a fun way. How does it look? And then you still feel relaxed and you explore different scenarios about it. And then it's a fun topic. And then it takes away this serious, I'm right thing.
yeah. And getting away from losing face is so important, isn't it? Because it can stifle some people, and it can be easily be done that you can. If someone feels silly for what they're thinking, you need to make it easy for them to go, oh, I'm wrong. It needs to be easy for someone to go, I didn't know that, or I'm wrong. I think they're really hard things to do sometimes for some people, because not everyone, but I think there are some people out there who would struggle when they, and as you say, sometimes they'll dig in to be right rather than for what being right rather than having the right thing. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Just thinking about the companies that you've got one of your sort of a little story of where you think you've made biggest impact with some of the coaching that you've done. Who are you most
I
proud of your coaching, particularly?
yeah. I'm looking at the references, which thanked me. It changed their life, their private life as well. And it's the pattern I see usually is really from getting stuck of being right towards getting this ability to move away from something, the skill to detach emotionally and to reflect and to move forward from this backward looking who is faulty towards this much more fun, what can we do now and here and then. And it's about these skills, that the race of skills, changing that. And one was kind of 52 teams as a lead agile coach, which I could transfer from this fighting to watch each other to solution orientation.
So that's 52 teams, did you say? So that's with like Scrum teams and Agile teams, sort of
Yeah, exactly.
nine people in there, and they were working against each other. Were they all delivering the same product, or were they separate products? Or
They were coming from different organizations
right,
altogether, and they used to kind of blame each other,
yeah,
and then rather than blaming each other, it was usually saying, "Hey, is that fun to blame each other?" And then they said, "No, it's not fun." So how much more time we save, how much more efficient we are if we don't look into these old stories which make us mad and bring emotional stress for all of us. Let's look what can we do to avoid that next time, to overcome, to become better next time. And then sharing ideas is much more nice.
yeah. I think it's interesting how different organisations, and especially when there's commercial considerations for those organisations, and if they're not, you can be in a situation where you'll have one organisation that's got two or three organisations working together, but they haven't contracted them in the same way, and they're not getting incentivised in exactly the same way. You can create those difficult barriers, don't they? Of those things of, as a commercial organisation, some organisations have got to protect themselves, and it's so hard to break down those getting the trust there, because commercially you've got to protect yourself, but that doesn't actually, in the long run, it doesn't help, does it? And it's really hard as a project manager. If you're delivering a project and you've got one of these teams and you're meant to deliver this, and your customer's going, you've got to do it, and otherwise there's penalties on there. And then you've got another team who's just got a team that are running an ad. They've just got T&M, and they've got a team that they've got no cap on their budget, and they've got no specific outcomes to deliver or specific dates. The team here, who's got that constraint, can be seen as a blocker. But it's kind of like, well, we can't do anything until we've got that signed off. And these guys, we'll just do it when we want. We can just move this around. We've got this agile team. We can shift stuff. We're really agile. And the problem is, this organisation here just kind of looks at that and goes, why aren't they working together properly? And they've set them up to fail in those situations, because you've got to put common arrangements of flexibility or lack of flexibility. Because otherwise you end up, as you say, they're just going to go, well, we're late because they're all too strict, or we're late because they haven't done it. They haven't done their bit they said they were going to do. No, because they thought something else was more important. They fitted it in and managed to move around. And it's difficult. I can't. 52 teams. I've seen it with 4 or 5 teams in those scenarios, but 52 teams that are obviously, I'm guessing some of those weren't completely different organisations, but even so, 52 teams that have different direction and different priorities and things like that. I can't imagine how you got them to work together. Was it? Did it take long? Was it easy? Was it really, really, really hard? I'm guessing it wasn't easy.
Yeah, the good part was that was the strategy or the vision to change, and that was to change from blaming towards solution orientated, and from frustration to empowerment. So that made it more easy, this transformation.
But how do you
And
get people to do that? How do you get them to change? Because it's kind of cultural as well, isn't it? With that, if you've got a team, you'll have developed a culture and you'll develop a way of working. How do you actually get people to recognise that? So you're talking 52 teams. You've got 9 in those. You've got, I can't do the maths, 500 people. How do you get 500 people to change that mindset? Like, I guess some of them are going to be better at that in those teams, but
definitely. Changing as well, using this agile ceremonies as well, because those helps you. It's a demo where the team can present their results and receive applause from management.
Yeah.
So that's a different attitude than beforehand, where there was no beginning and no end. And then we come back to music, then it's kind of a kind of frame which agility gives you. Demo planning, daily stand-ups where the agenda is supporting each other, saying, okay, this is what I have achieved, and can anybody help me? Here I'm blocked. And with these patterns, same like music patterns, that helps to change the attitude, to change the mindset. And cartoons are helping as well, reflecting, here is where we are at the moment. Here's a cartoon we started, and here is a future cartoon.
And what do we do together? It's interesting using those ceremonies and using them properly, rather than playing lip service to them is kind of what I'm hearing there. Because I think there are situations where people put in the agile ceremonies, but they're not. They don't seem to have the full engagement from everyone on the team, and everyone has to be engaged in operating in that manner fully. Otherwise, it's just not. It's just another meeting then, isn't it?
And taking as well this kind of looking at the picture from the far. Agile means customer centric. Looking from customer perspective always gives us a similar picture.
Yeah.
And decision or whatever is, or from shareholder perspective. Shareholder and clients, customers perspective.
Yeah, it depends.
And naming that, reminding in difficult scenarios, let's all look as a customer at our topic now, which we are sorting out. How does that look from customer perspective? Therefore, I love this agile ceremonies and looking at that.
Yeah, that customer centric can it be? Because then again, you're kind of looking at it. I suppose you draw that in when you've got these teams that aren't working together, and if you draw that common thing of if you're both serving that customer, right? We both want to serve the customer, and once you get on the thing of we want it best for the customer, and then if both individuals that are kind of warring on both teams kind of go, well, we're thinking about the customer and you're not. No, we're thinking about the customer as well. Okay, so we think this is the best for the customer. Oh, well, we think this is the best customer. Why? And then you've started that conversation, but you're not focusing on why they're right or why they're wrong. You're focusing on why this is better for the customer. And again, that takes that abstract, doesn't it? It abstracts you away in that longer view from the work that's being done to the product that's being delivered. Which again, it's the outcome, isn't it, on the agile side of it.
And that adds this healthy distance, which is needed.
Yeah, I get that. Brilliant. I'm just noticing we're not far off an hour, and I know it's getting late where you are, and you do want to get to bed at some point this evening. Is there anything? I think we could have talked for quite a bit longer on this, to be honest. But is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you would thought you'd like to bring out, or you'd like to mention as part of what of either of the books or of the coaching services that you provide?
Yeah, I wish all the listeners great success and time to breathe, time to take the distance, and I would love the listener to read Team Rhythm and explore the exercises and hear about the exploration.
Brilliant.
And after all, thinking it's life that we spend together.
Yeah,
and
sometimes we forget that, don't we? We forget that we're spending time together, and it might as well be pleasant, isn't it?
Yeah, and Nigel, thank you so much. I had fun doing this 1 hour.
Good. That's
Thank you.
good. That's good. So if people want to get in touch with you, what do they need to do? What's the best way to get hold of you, or get hold of the book or whatever?
Yeah, on the book is all my um, uh, over LinkedIn, like Iris Clermont, info@aiccoaching.com is my mail, or my webpage aiccoaching.com.
Superb. I'll put links in the show notes to those anyway. So thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a fascinating conversation, as I knew it would be. And have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.